He orbited her life like one of his Starlink satellites. Silent, patient, calculating, waiting for the right moment to make his move. And then, in 2016, that moment arrived. Amber's marriage to Johnny Depp imploded in spectacular fashion. Domestic abuse allegations, restraining orders, a media circus that turned her into one of the most polarizing figures on earth. The world chose sides. Hashtags trended. Her career began to crumble. And Elon? He was there, waiting in the wings with a private jet, unlimited resources, and a vision of a future where she could escape the chaos. Their first official public appearance together was at the 2016 Met Gala. The photos from that night are telling. Amber, dressed in a flowing red gown, looking like Hollywood royalty. Elon, in his usual understated black, looking like a man who had finally captured something he'd been chasing for years. But this wasn't a fairy tale. This was a collision. Industry insiders began whispering immediately. "This won't end well," one Hollywood agent told a reporter off the record. "She's chaos. He's The tabloids feasted on it. Here was a Silicon Valley titan dating a Hollywood bombshell fresh off one of the most brutal public breakups in entertainment history. The headlines wrote themselves. But behind the glamorous photos and carefully curated social media posts, something darker was brewing. Amber was filming Aquaman on Australia's Gold Coast, a grueling production schedule that kept her on location for months. Elon, running multiple billion-dollar companies, should have been impossible to pin down. Tesla was facing production hell with the Model 3. SpaceX was preparing for critical launches. The Boring Company was just getting started. His schedule was insane. And yet, his private Gulfstream G650, one of the most advanced jets in the world, became a regular fixture on the Australian tarmac. Airport workers began noticing a pattern. He would fly in for 24 hours, sometimes 48. Then disappear back to California for meetings, only to return days later. One airport employee, speaking anonymously to local media at the time, said, "We'd see his plane land, and it was like clockwork. He'd come for her, spend barely any time on the ground, then leave." It was obsessive. Think about that for a moment. Elon Musk, a man whose time is worth millions per hour, was flying halfway around the world repeatedly for brief visits. That's not normal behavior. That's not a casual relationship. That's obsession. But it wasn't just the distance that was a problem. It was the volatility. Friends of both Elon and Amber began noticing cracks almost immediately. Elon's family, particularly his brother Kimball and his mother May, were reportedly horrified by the relationship. According to sources close to the Musk family, they staged what can only be described as interventions. "She's going to destroy you," one alleged family member told Elon during a heated dinner conversation. "This isn't sustainable. She's not stable." But Elon didn't listen. He couldn't. Because for him, this wasn't just about romance. This was about conquering the unconquerable. He had mastered engineering. He had mastered business. He had mastered space travel. But he hadn't mastered her. And that made her irresistible. Amber, for her part, was navigating her own battlefield. Hollywood was turning its back on her. The Depp allegations had divided public opinion so sharply that studios were afraid to touch her. Her phone wasn't ringing. Roles were drying up. She needed stability. She needed security. And Elon represented both. But stability with Elon came at a cost: his need for control. According to people who spent time with them during this period, their arguments were legendary. One hotel worker in Paris recalled hearing shouting through the walls of their suite at 3 a.m. Another source claimed they witnessed Elon pacing outside a restaurant, on the phone, clearly agitated, while Amber sat inside alone. The relationship was a paradox. They were magnetic together, two people who understood what it meant to be misunderstood by the world. But they were also incompatible on a fundamental level. Elon needed predictability. He needed systems. He needed control. His entire life was built on equations, on cause and effect, on measurable outcomes. Amber thrived in chaos. She was spontaneous, impulsive, and impossible to pin down. She didn't want to be controlled. She wanted to be free. And then came South America. In mid-2017, the couple took a vacation, ostensibly to reconnect, to escape the pressure, to heal whatever wounds their relationship had accumulated. They brought along Elon's family. It should have been a bonding experience. Instead, it became a battlefield. Multiple sources claim the trip descended into screaming matches that echoed through hotel hallways. Accusations flew. Doors slammed. Elon's family reportedly confronted Amber directly, blaming her for destabilizing their brother. Amber reportedly fired back, accusing them of interference and control. One insider described the scene as a complete meltdown. It wasn't just a couple fighting. It was a family at war. Elon would later describe this period as the most concentrated pain he had ever experienced. Let that sink in. A man who has faced rocket explosions, financial ruin, public humiliation, and the death of a child said that this relationship caused him more pain than anything else. Why? Because it wasn't something he could solve with engineering. It wasn't something he could fix with money. It was pure, chaotic, unpredictable human emotion. And he was drowning in it. But before the relationship completely collapsed, something happened. Something that would bind them together forever, whether they wanted it or not. They visited a fertility clinic. They created embryos. Let's talk about what happened at that fertility clinic. Because this is where the story shifts from a messy celebrity breakup into something far more complex, far more legally entangled, and far more consequential. Why would a couple in a visibly failing relationship create embryos? The simplest answer: hope. Maybe they believed this was the foundation for a future together. Maybe they thought that planning for children would stabilize the chaos. Maybe, in some twisted way, they saw it as an investment in a relationship they both wanted to save but didn't know how to fix. But there's another explanation, a more calculated one. For Elon, embryos weren't just about love. They were about legacy. Elon has been vocal, almost fanatical, about his belief in pronatalism. He genuinely believes that humanity is facing an underpopulation crisis. He believes that smart, capable people have a moral obligation to have children. He has said, repeatedly, that declining birth rates are the biggest threat to civilization. Creating embryos with Amber wasn't just romantic. It was strategic. It was biological insurance. For Amber, those embryos represented something different: security. In a relationship with one of the richest men on Earth, biological material tied to him is leverage. It's a connection that can't be severed, even if the relationship ends. It's insurance of a different kind. But here's where it gets dark. When the relationship finally imploded in 2018, after months of on-again, off-again chaos, both parties walked away. The tabloids moved on. The public forgot. The world assumed it was over. But it wasn't over. It was just beginning. Because now there was a new problem. What happens to the embryos? Enter Jennifer Howell. In 2020, during the height of the Johnny Depp vs. Amber Heard legal battle, Howell, a close friend of Amber's sister Whitney, submitted a deposition. Buried in that testimony was a bombshell that most media outlets glossed over. According to Howell, Amber's mother, Paige Heard, revealed that Elon was suing Amber over the embryos. Specifically, he allegedly wanted them destroyed. Completely, permanently, removed from existence. Think about the irony of that for a second. Elon Musk, the man who were spotted together about underpopulation, who has fathered at least 12 known children, who preaches that humanity needs more babies,
the couple wrote that the distance has been hard on their relationship,
he helped
but
create.
they still have the utmost
Why?
respect
Was
for
it
each other.
fear? Fear that Amber would
In
use
November
those embryos
2017,
to create children
Musk
without his
opened up
consent,
about their split in
binding
an
him to her
interview,
forever?
saying he was
Fear
truly
that
in
those
love
children
and
could become
hurt
heirs
when
to
they
his
split.
empire, complicating
The
his estate
following
planning
month,
and succession
Musk was seen
strategies?
again with Heard.
Or was it
Although
something
they
else?
were photographed
Was it the
kissing, a
realization
source
that
said they
Amber
are
had
just
leverage
friends.
over him? Biological
Days
leverage
later,
that could be
Musk
weaponized
and
at any
Heard were
moment?
spotted vacationing
Legal
together in
experts
Chile,
say that
and
embryo
in January
disputes are
their
notoriously
relationship appeared
complex.
to have taken a romantic
They exist
turn.
in a gray area of law
In
where
February
property
2018,
rights, reproductive
the couple
rights,
split
and
for the
parental
second
rights
time.
collide.
A source told
In
people
most
that the couple's
jurisdictions,
timing
both
wasn't
parties
right.
must consent for embryos
In an
to be
interview
used.
later that year,
If one
Heard
party
spoke
refuses,
positively of
the
Musk,
embryos
saying
remain
they
frozen
shared
indefinitely,
curiosity,
or they're
ideas
destroyed.
and conversation,
But
and a
Amber,
shared love
according
of
to
science.
insiders, didn't want them destroyed.
She said,
She
Elon
wanted
and
them
I had a
preserved.
beautiful relationship,
She wanted the option.
and we have a...
And this is where the legal war began. Here's what we know for sure. No public court filings exist. No mainstream media coverage documented this battle. But insiders claim that behind the scenes, lawyers moved like shadows. Confidentiality agreements were drafted with language so airtight they could choke. Non-disclosure agreements were signed by everyone even tangentially involved: assistants, medical staff, even the surrogacy agency. One source described the NDAs as military grade. Another said they contained clauses so punitive that violating them would mean financial annihilation. This wasn't a breakup, this was a Cold War. And the weapons weren't missiles, they were embryos. But while lawyers fought in the shadows, biology kept moving forward. Because in 2021, something happened that made the entire world start asking questions. Amber Heard announced the birth of her daughter, Una Page. The announcement was carefully crafted. Amber posted a photo on Instagram, her cradling a newborn, smiling, looking peaceful for the first time in years. The caption was simple but loaded. "I'm just the mom and the dad. She's the love of my life." No mention of a father. No acknowledgement of a partner. Just Amber and her daughter. The internet exploded with speculation immediately. Who was the father? Why the secrecy? Why a surrogate? And why did Amber, at the peak of her legal battle with Johnny Depp, suddenly decide to become a mother? The timeline is suspicious. The embryos were created around 2017. Una was born in April 2021. That's roughly 4 years. Plenty of time for legal negotiations, for settlements, for quiet agreements to be reached. And then there's the name, Una Page. Page was Amber's mother's name, the same mother who, according to Jennifer Howell, revealed the embryo lawsuit. Coincidence? Or a deliberate signal? But the story doesn't end there. Because in 2025, Amber announced something that made the conspiracy theories explode all over again. She had twins, Agnes and Ocean, 3 children, all born via surrogate, all while Amber lived in complete seclusion in Madrid, Spain. And once again, no mention of a father. Let's talk about what happened after 2021. Because this is where the story goes from suspicious to downright eerie. Amber Heard, one of the most photographed, most scrutinized, most polarizing figures in modern entertainment, vanished. Not metaphorically, not temporarily, she literally disappeared from public life. No red carpets, no interviews, no paparazzi photos, no Instagram posts beyond carefully curated images of her daughter. It was as if she had stepped through a portal into another dimension. And then we found out where she went: Madrid, Spain.